Jeff Tom, and I am the chair and a representative of the ACB Capital Chapter, California Council of the Blind. And we'll go to my left. We'll do staff. We'll do members first, staff second, and members of the public third.
Okay, I'm Charles Johnson, a member of the A&I committee and representing seniors.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is German Ayan. I'm a program manager with the Agency on Aging Area 4, and I'm in the TCNP committee.
Pam Floor, member at large representing seniors, and I should have taken the bus. I would have gotten here sooner.
Jane Lozano, member at large representing the interests of people who are blind or have low vision. Chair of the Access and Infrastructure Subcommittee. And I also got stuck in that traffic coming from Carmichael too, Pam.
Yes.
And we had to go roundabout way down 160 to get here.
Oh, wow.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Frank Trio. I'm a member of the River City chapter of the National Federation of the Blind of California. And I'm also on TCNP here at the MAC.
Good afternoon. My name is Helen O'Connell, and I'm chair of the TCNP subcommittee. And I am glad to be here and nice to see everyone in person.
Good afternoon, Priscilla Vargas. I'm staff liaison for the MAC and ADA compliance officer for SAC-RT.
Okay, do we have members on Zoom?
Austin, do we have folks on Zoom?
Good afternoon. My name is Mariano Rosales, MAC member, and I am with California Resource Services for Independent Living.
Great.
Anyone else?
I know Hugh was going to come, so he may still pop in on Zoom. Okay.
Is
Oh.
he there? All right, he was here.
Okay. Are you able to unmute and?
Well, he has to.
Oh, let's get someone to,
Yeah. Can you put in the chat, welcome? Okay.
Great.
Welcome, Hugh.
All right.
Great, thank you. So now let's, Priscilla, we'll go to staff.
Okay, Blanca?
Bus Operations Director, Blanca Salcedo.
Carmen Alba, VP of Operations.
Vincent Beatty, Director of Light Rail Operations.
Michael Cormier, Director of Light Rail Maintenance.
Jessica Gonzalez, Director of Marketing, Communication, and Public Information.
Jamie Pulcanavery, Director of Customer Satisfaction.
Kathy Sajan, the Paratransit Operations Manager.
Sean Reynolds, SAC-RT Go Program Analyst.
Austin Greiner, Accessible Services.
Your members in the audience.
Okay, thank you. And
Austin will pass over the mic.
yeah.
Hello, my name is Joseph Wilson, Credential Resources for Credential Living.
Great.
Okay, I think that's everybody.
Okay, do we have anybody else on Zoom that either staff or members of the public that have not yet been introduced?
Good afternoon. This is Henry Kutukwa, Vice President of Capital Program, SAC-RT.
Thank you.
Is that it? Is that it? I see James Drake too. James Drake?
He's trying to be incognito today, is he?
Margie Donovan is here.
Want to say hello, James?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. James Drake with SAC-RT Planning. Sorry, I earlier I wasn't able to turn my mic on. I just saw that now. Thank you.
Thanks.
Looks like Margie is on.
Yes, I am.
Margie.
Hi, all.
Welcome. Okay, so we will now go to item 3, which is approval of the April 18th minutes. Do we have a motion?
Motion to accept the minutes of April 18th. Helen O'Connell.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions?
Gene Lozano abstains.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll go on to item 4, public comment on items not on the agenda. So first, excuse me, in the room, do we have any public comment?
Any public comment? No?
No, okay, and
On Zoom?
do we have any on Zoom? Okay, hearing none. We'll go on to the chair's report. 2 brief things. First, we have a birthday person today. So we won't sing, but we will all say happy birthday to Carmen.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Carmen.
Thank you so much.
Only 23,
It's only
24,
That's
something like that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, so the only other item I have on the chair's report, excuse me, is that I, as part of, and Priscilla can sort of add on to this if she chooses. This week, Sacramento took its 1 millionth rider, and the RT is doing a blog on that, and I was asked to provide some comments about the MAC, which I did for that blog with one of there's an RT employee who's putting that together. And I don't know if Priscilla wants to add anything in terms of that 1 million passenger or not.
Actually, I'm going to hold the thunder for Jessica.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, you can do that then. All right. So then actually what we're going to do is go to Jessica anyway, because we're next to old business. And this under her, she's here for an update on the S700 train education and communications plan, but it's whatever else she's got to add. So Jessica, take it away.
Perfect. I can start. It was my last item, but I'll start with that we had a celebration this morning to recognize our 1 millionth Sacramento paratransit rider. So we actually held a pop-up celebration for the rider when she was coming out of an appointment. And we had lots of us that are in this room were there, and we had balloons and a banner and numbers that spelled out 1 million and a little swag bag for her and for our driver. And so we will post hopefully tomorrow. I have to go through the approval process for a blog post and also a video, which will be on our website, on our social media, will be emailed out. So that was a super fun celebration to be able to recognize that milestone this morning. I have 3 just quick updates for everyone. I had mentioned the mini high banners that were going to get placed on the gold and green lines, just as a heads up to mini high ramp users that the process will change with the new low floor light rail trains. So those banners are now up on the gold and green lines, and the audio messages are going up either tomorrow or Monday. They should be live. So that if you're visually impaired, you'll be able to know that same message that we have there in the banners that are on those mini highs. I also want to make sure, I believe an email was sent out to MAC, but I also did send an email out to our riders list today that we're hosting 2 community events for tours of the new S700 low floor light rail vehicles that will be on Saturday, June 1st at 13th Street Station between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. And also on Wednesday, June 12th at our 7th and Richards Township 9 station between 10 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. So we'd love to have you out if you want to take another look at those trains. We'll also have different celebratory things there as well. So more than just the trains will be involved in those 2 events. And then my final piece, I had mentioned we did our video shoot for our ADA How to Ride Light Rail Trains. That video is coming along. We did have some other projects that had to push that down a little bit in our list, but we hope to have that first version of the video ready by the end of this month. Then we do need to go out to the vendor once that's completed to get our visual description version. And then that second video should be ready by mid-June. So during my next MAC update next month, I should have more on that video for you. questions?
You talk so fast, I missed where the June 1st
Sure.
one was and
Yep.
what time.
Yes, and I did send this out, but I'll go over those dates again. So I'll go over those 2 dates. So Saturday, June 1st is our first one at 13th Street. That's 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Then our second event, Wednesday, June 12th, and that's at the 7th and Richards Township 9 station. And that one is going to be from 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. And this is all on our website as well. If you need help, customer service will have that information too.
Yeah, so I have just one quick question and then we'll move it on around.
Sure.
Other MAC members. At those 2 community events, if there is someone with a disability who wants to have a little bit of a run through of how they're going to, how the buttons work and where they are and all that, will there be somebody to explain
Yes.
the configuration?
Yeah, so this is a perfect opportunity. We're trying to figure out right now if we're going to create some stanchions with vines on the different door options. So we're still kind of walking through how we're going to do that exactly. But yes, we will have light rail staff there. We'll have different members of my staff, customer service staff. So lots of us will be there to go through with all of our riders on how the different button works, how the different doors, what the options are for each of the doors. So this is really that opportunity for people to be able to interact with those trains before they go into service.
Okay, other questions? Gene, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to take a different position on that, Jessica. A&I committee in this MAC, at least 2 to 3 years ago, brought up about this educational program and having the opportunity hands-on for the disability and senior communities. And what we all had talked about was an event just for the disabled and the seniors so that we would not have a mob, a carnival's atmosphere, like the first day that it is going to be, where people can easily get through it and have the attention of RT staff, but also that's where orientation mobility specialists that work with the blind could be working with them. Travel trainers that work with other disability groups there could actually go there, and it would be one way of preventing there being congestion on the vehicles. And we've had examples of that when we've done showings of vehicles here, buses, and had it open, and it's much smaller in a bus, but we had sometimes where we had 2 people who used wheelchairs in those securement areas, and no one could get past them because they were discussing things and problems and things like that. And there's more space in the light rail vehicle, more doors, but still hands-on. It's more of a one-to-one awareness. It's not something you can just quickly answer, and then that person maybe answering the question has to be it's distracted by somebody else is trying to get them from the public. So I really strongly want to bring that up again. We need to have that separate event for both the disabled and seniors.
I'm going to let Priscilla talk about that. I know, just so you guys understand the difference, the challenge, it's much easier with a bus because you could park a bus anywhere. The challenge is we have to stop light rail service when we put a train on the track. So just to give you some perspective, but I will let.
Yeah,
Priscilla handle it.
and thanks, Jean, for bringing that important issue up, because we did talk about that some time ago. And
many times.
And I know that that's something that was a goal for MAC to make sure that we have the opportunity with people with disabilities and seniors. So we should have enough time, but obviously that needs to get worked out between light rail, folks internally, so that, as Jessica said, with the train having to be stopped, essentially, that's really the only way we can do those kinds of interactive types of events. So more to come on that, but I think we can definitely get something carved out to do that, Jean.
Okay.
And your recommendation with respect to, like folks from Society for the Blind would be a good group that could round up some of the folks from their agency, folks that are in the travel training arena to be at that event would also be good to
And
include.
we can try to find local certified orientation mobility specialists that are in this community to see possibly if they might be interested in showing their clients, like the school districts, showing the kids that with visual impairments and travel trainers that work with other disabilities. So, we're all trying to encourage people to ride the system. This is going to be intimidating for people because of change. And, sometimes as we get older, and I'm talking about myself, 73 years old, we start cognitively, sometimes it's a little harder to understand certain new things that might be being explained to us, and it might take a little more time. Not everyone is in this situation, but it's reality in the biggest segment. So yeah, I would personally, as the chair of the A&I committee, would really like to be kept advised about where things are going on this direction. The other question transferring is, I'm pleased, but I was surprised at the same time, reading the minutes from April, and I'm very pleased about that you will have the videos done professionally to have audio description. Could you please explain what this company is? We've never heard of it. And two is, how were you able to, and I praise people who did it, how were you able to sole source this without going in an RFP?
We didn't need to do that. We already had a contract. I'll let Priscilla
Yeah,
explain that.
we have a contract with Cal Interpreting, and they actually do the audio description, Gene. So we've had a contract with them for.
What are they? I've never heard of them.
They're an interpreting company that does, they do
foreign languages, as well, right?
languages
Yeah.
and different kinds of information and in different formats, and they actually also do audio description. So I can share some information with MAC members
Please.
about this company. Sure.
And if a link to something of an example of their audio description
Sure. Yeah.
work,
We can make
and
sure to get that to you.
I think too, if at the next meeting, I think it would be great to show the video with
If
the
it's
audio
done, for
description and
sure.
captioning. Yeah, if
Yeah,
it's done.
yeah.
Yeah, agree. And, as I had shared about this at the March meeting and the A&I committee meeting, as much as I want, and the law is that you to have that video in place the same time you release one for the general public. But I think the reality is, I think the blind and low vision community would rather to see that it's late coming out, but done with quality and done right one time. And I think that's something that staff would want too, is not having to revisit this and this be something that you can use for many targeted populations.
Yeah.
So thank you.
And as we go through the process, it will give us an idea of how long it takes the vendor to do the work for us, and then for the videographer to create that second. So this is our first time going through it. I just don't want to give a expected date unless we've worked through that process already.
Understood that. And this, this is probably a question I'm going to ask you, but you probably won't be able. It's not that you don't want to answer it, but the audio. This is a totally different topic. This is about the mini high platforms announcing and having audible announcements that those stations, the mini high platforms at the gold line, are going to be closed after the low floor is operating. But at the same time, I had asked about and would hope somebody, Craig Norman or somebody, it could be by email, could tell us about getting a product equivalent to like MCO Light, which is where you place it right there at the location. So that people, when they encounter the physical barrier across that ramp, will know why that is there. And it will be activated by the movement of somebody right there at that thing. If you're doing it through your PA system, there's no localization. You're not going to be constantly having it. So somebody may decide they want to get on that mini hack platform between announcements from the PA system and then be confused. So that's another reason you need to have MCO Lite. And do you have any knowledge at all about where those discussions are, even though you're not in engineering?
We have not decided how we are closing off those mini highs yet and what devices will or will not be there. We do know we will have signs that will have Braille on when we close those off, but we are not at the point yet that we could say.
Okay, just keep in mind, only unfortunately about 10% of the population of the blind read Braille. So you can't rely just on Braille itself. Thank you.
And we're having active discussions on that, Jean, just there's frequently.
And please include us too on those because we can provide some insight too.
Yeah, when I say active discussion, there's still that internal part of it that's occurring.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
All right, other, whoops. Oh, okay, Helen, go ahead.
I have a question about the location of the call buttons that were supposed to be moved from underneath the bar.
They're going to address it in the next.
Yeah, that would, let's wait
Okay,
for.
That's not my area.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other MAC members, including members on Zoom, Hugh or Mariano?
Anything, Austin?
Okay, so let's now go to public comment. We'll start on Zoom in public comment this time. We have anybody on Zoom?
Hi, my name's Steven Sandow. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time and attention. I was just curious if this committee might consider recommending allowing individuals who utilize e-bikes who are often too heavy to lift up into the high floor light rail vehicles to use the accessibility ramp, obviously subject to removal or exit for people with wheelchairs or disabilities or any of the other priority seating. I don't think anybody would ever want to take away space from them, but I believe that these are very, very popular vehicles that could extend the range and capability of our system for people to get places, and they are shut out because of this policy. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know whether the.
Okay, when in the presentation coming up, Vince is going to address bikes.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else with public comment, either Zoom or in the room? Okay, hearing none.
Sorry, I have a question.
Oh, yes.
But so these communication meetings that you're going to have June 1st and June 12th, are these conversations going to be translated, or are the translators going to be provided for people that don't speak English?
I have a Spanish bilingual employee, but at this point, I don't know if I have any other languages available.
Of ASL for the deaf.
I don't have a staff member that can do that. I don't know if that's something Priscilla's area is able to help me with. I don't know.
We can have that available, but go ahead, Jamie. Jamie.
Usually we can provide that typically if we know ahead of time we do have services or if we have staff available. I think on the first we have one that can provide ASL in regards to that question. But if we know ahead of time, usually
we have something that announces it when you're announcing it. There's
Yeah.
information if you needed an interpreter.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that was included.
I think we almost have to provide it in an instance like this because there's no way to know whether a person who is deaf or hard of hearing is going to show up or not. We have to kind of assume they will. Otherwise, that part of the community is shut out unless they happen to report ahead of time.
Jeff is correct. really would be a problem.
Mhm.
That not to have that available. It's just like, even though, let's say we do get this special event for the disabled and the senior communities, there's still going to be some people just through the word of mouth and your communications that's been out there are going to possibly show up anyway on those dates. And so I think it's worth, and you need to spend the money both days to have an ASL interpreter there, as even if no one shows up, but I think just it'll protect you from potential backlash of not opening it up to the public fully. And I'm coming from not a threatening, saying lawsuit or anything. I'm just saying PR. It's not something that would be really good, especially when you don't want that overshadow the good and great thing that you're doing here now.
And Hugh, I would hope that you will really talk this up through NorCal, and that there would be some folks out there to take advantage of that information. Anyone else? Public comment?
Margie,
Okay, Margie, go right ahead.
thank you. I apologize to the blind members. I posted something in the chat, and I will say what I posted. To the best of my knowledge, the two O&M instructors at the Society for the Blind are blind. And I am not comfortable working out on the streets with the blind mobility instructor, and I would encourage RT to seek out a sighted mobility instructor in addition to the ones from the society. Thank you.
Thank you, Margie. We had a little bit of a hard time understanding you down at my end anyway. So
Really? Can you hear me better now?
yes.
Oh, sorry. I am so sorry. I'll just repeat
Okay,
it.
it's not.
I posted in the chat something, and I apologize to the blind members of the committee. I shouldn't have done that. But what I basically said, to the best of my knowledge, the two orientation mobility instructors at the Society for the Blind are blind. I personally am not comfortable working out on the streets with a mobility instructor who is blind. And I urge RT, in addition to working with SAC Society, to find a sighted mobility instructor as an option. I think there's many of us out in our community that are not comfortable working with a blind mobility instructor, and that can be a heated topic, but those of us that are blind, we understand the issue.
Okay, thank you, Margie.
You're welcome.
Okay, let us now go on to item B under old business. The S700 train update we'll have the Vincent and Michael show. So gentlemen, go right ahead.
Good afternoon. Michael Cormay, Director of Light Rail Maintenance. Quick update on the S700 vehicles. They're continuing their testing progress. The 20 vehicles we have on property go through a rigorous testing process with Siemens staff members and ours. Work in parallel to get these vehicles tested for full functionality. A lot of intricate components have to be looked at. A lot of hours are spent to make sure that it's right, and perform railroad track tests, and all with making sure that the brake systems work, the propulsion works, every light works. So that process is continuing, moving forward. We're making good mileage out of all the vehicles that we can test at night. And so the progress is looking forward and looking positive. Any questions?
Okay, let's start with Helen, who had that. Helen, you want to repeat your question?
Yes, I was at the S700 presentation at Township 9, and I had several suggestions. The one that was most on my mind was not being able to reach the call bar. I just couldn't reach it. I don't care which way I went, I couldn't reach it. And they suggested that they could move it up on the bottom of the seat, even with the wheelchair armrest.
That's correct. We took your comment and suggestion and we reviewed it, and we're still reviewing that with Siemens. I think our dilemma is the placement of scratch at the relocation of that slide bar may have to change out the entire seat pan. So that's what we're looking at and to see with the feasibility of that. And also that bar is protected with a sidebar also. Offers a little bit of protection for it so that people don't inadvertently bump into it as well. So we're weighing all those options, looking at it carefully. You had a great comment. We watched as you're trying to press that button, and what a handy button to have. But it's in a pretty secured environment so that nobody inadvertently touches it too. So it was sort of purpose built. So we're weighing all those options to make sure that we can make a good sound decision with that.
Yeah, they suggested to put it when the seat is up, right on the top.
Above the bar, right?
Above
The grab handle, correct. And so we may look at options as labeling it so people can see it. There's an option there too. So we've toyed with that idea with a couple of labels, things like that. But we're still reviewing that, and we owe you a closure, right, wrong, or indifferent. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helen.
Okay, other MAC member questions? Jean, you have your hand up.
Hi, Michael. I guess, one, I heard an idea that sounded really good, and I just wanted to, I have a few questions. One was that out of that meeting was that when the interior of the car and you're coming to a station and you want to push the button to open the door, that regardless which side of the door entry that you're in the aisle there and you got to left and right the door, that if you push it on one side, that you could push on either side and the door will only then open on that side of the vehicle, that there's a platform. That would, I understand, would have been a software change, because right now you push the button that's adjacent to near the door that you're exiting, not the one across the aisle. I was wondering if that software change is going to occur. That's the first question.
And I'm going to get specific with you. That button that you're talking about was the same button that Helen spoke of, and it's a long, elongated button. And it would allow, once you press that command, it would only open the safe side, which is the door that's being accessed by the operator. Correct?
How about the one that when you go down the ramp inside the car, you're going to slope there, and I'm doing the memory from about 2.5 years ago, so I apologize. But I think there was, in addition to that, on either side of those doors, there was a button that you could push to exit. I'm talking about the inside after you're going down the slope and you're physically within inches of the door.
Right. I believe that only the doors that are accessed for that side would work. If you were to press the buttons on the opposite side, there would be no functionality to those doors. So that's where I still believe still works. It's only the doors for which the operator has accessed for safety reasons. And once they access those doors, it livens up the doors on the proper side. And once you press those buttons, they would open accordingly.
Thank you.
But if you were to press the buttons on the opposite sides, nothing's going to happen.
Thank you for that clarification.
So wait a minute, before you go on, but at that meeting, you indicated that you would, look at that and determine whether we were able to make it, you were able to make a change. So are you saying that that change is not possible to enable you to a customer to open the door from the opposite side on which, if they sit on the opposite side? Is that what you're indicating, Michael?
Yes, but that was only to the slide bar that Helen talked about. That was an option to where if a patron was on the opposite side of the train, they'd be able to hit that bar and it would work. I still think that needs a software change, Jeff. We'll get to that. But I do know that the actual door buttons would not work.
Okay.
It's not the change we're
Okay.
talking about. It was
All
a
right.
slide bar,
Right, I got it.
a long bar.
Okay.
Okay.
Gene, go ahead.
And you're not going to be able to answer this now, but after the first visit to Siemens, again, I think that was about 2.5 years ago or so, we had a debriefing session and we had a huge laundry list of things to be looked at, including the buttons on the exterior of the car door, which some of us anticipate there's going to be some confusion on the door as to what's the buttons pushing when you go ones with the ramp. There were several things there, and we never got any response of, no, we can't do it. Maybe we could do it. Maybe a change order. And I'm just wondering whether, Priscilla, if the notes from that debriefing could be shared with Michael and Vince and Craig Norman again, and see if we get a response, even if everything is no, at least knowing those issues were heard and addressed.
Gene,
Yes.
this is Vince. So I believe everyone that came to the Township 9 venue agreed that the button placement that you're talking about was satisfied, that the buttons were placed where folks had desired them, and they were very, the ramp button, so to speak, is visible on both outside, inside, and is at a location that is very accessible.
Well, there was the issue, and I there was unanimous discussion when we had our debriefing that to have one button with the light just beneath it and then button on the other side beneath it, that there would be confusion about that, and was seen about maybe changing the software so that you actually, if the light that is supposed to register the activation was activating the button beneath it or above it, just so that association, because it's confusing if you got one that is in the upper left side and you got a light there that is not registering for that button, but it's the one across the door. So there was confusion there when we all went through it. Yes.
You're talking about,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
And that was the thing when our first visit there,
Mhm.
and we spent a great deal of time, even some of our MAC members with full vision felt that it was confusing. So yes, I know you got additional input, but I still think that what input you got previously, we never got any response to that. And I would hope it's not just going to say, well, we're not doing it because this group that saw it a few weeks ago trumps whatever was brought up previously, because we spent a great deal of time there and a lot of thought on some of those things.
Yeah, I remember that visit at Siemens.
Yeah.
I wonder if Craig took notes.
We have all kinds of
Okay.
information. And I don't know, though, if based on the input that there was going to be wholesale changes made
Sure.
to the buttons.
Sure.
And I know with the most recent visit, and Gene, that was at Township 9, we had some MAC members there, and I believe Charles and Helen were there. Jeff was there. And Frank was there, and I believe in German, I think was there as well. I know that we tested the buttons as well. Was there still that sentiment with respect to the buttons? Because I don't think that was something that was of concern, but I can resurrect the
Resurrection, because Frank even had concerns at the time when he had that visit.
Yeah, but they do work now. So for example, on the right door, there's two buttons. The top button just opens up the door. On the left door, on the outside, the bottom button opens up the door and sends out the ramp as well. And on the inside, it does the exact same thing.
I talk about the exterior side of the door. That's what I'm talking about. When you have the multiple ramps in relationship to the lights that illuminate when activated, the buttons.
I
That
just
was,
didn't know there were lights. I didn't see lights.
there's 4 things there. 2 are buttons and 2 are, as I was told, were lights, the indicators that were there. So you actually, when facing the door, you have 4 little circles there.
Correct.
2 of them are buttons, 2 of them are lights, and they're diagonal from one another. So it's not like the buttons are all on the left side of the door and the lights on the right side that activate it or reverse.
Yeah.
So they're crisscross there. These are diagonal. So that's potential confusion. But the thing is, that was something that I know, even if we could have changed it, it couldn't be done, but I still want all the other suggestions that have been brought, looked at. And I guess the final question is, I know we're locked into this, the initial contract, what Siemens was through, because we were piggybacking on San Diego's contract, but these future money that has come in for additional cars there, do you have latitude then? Is that still going to be connected with San Diego? And will we have latitude to make some physical changes? And I'm not talking about these buttons, but perhaps to address Helen's concern about the placement of this, the strip, whatever it is, and maybe other things there that you're going to find out, not just from this committee or the community of disabled and senior individuals, but the general community. Will you be able to do changes for future cars if need be, that go beyond San Diego? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. We would still have to look at that contractually to make sure, okay. And going back to the doors real quick, the 2 other circles are illuminated when the door is out of service. So if there was a fault with the door, that would be illuminate that door was out of service and for you to find another door. The other 2 buttons are actually operating buttons. So you know what, maybe we should.
That should be part of the video.
Yeah, we could totally work that into a part of a video and actually put a fault on those doors so you can see what it lights up and what it looked like. I think that's totally within doable and shed some light on how it works. Okay. And then any other changes to the vehicle, we would have to research that and get back because we're talking about a contractual thing. And so, we would not be at liberty to discuss that into detail unless we had a good sound judgment and things like that to go against what was built. So
are you going to be able to put a different thing, the outlining of a stripe of yellow in the interior around the sloped area of each door there? And I understand Priscilla's visit to San Diego, they had put something, though it seemed to be a maintenance thing of holding up, but that is something the low vision community down in San Diego insisted that they have very strongly. People took falls with the 70 I guess S70 cars, which is kind of the 700. It's a spin-off from that, but the doors are still the same in that sloped area. So will we have something, and what is it that we're going to have that stripes to prevent people not realizing that there's a dip there? Because there's a lot of people out with depth perception that know about it, and sometimes they don't realize they have some depth perception problems as we age.
They have it's the yellow striping that the striping that they.
Will we have that in our vehicles?
Yeah, weren't we applying it already?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, other
I will
MAC member
double-check that.
questions? In the room or on Zoom?
I don't see anyone in the room. Zoom? No one?
Anyone on Zoom, Austin? Okay, any members of the public? Either in the room or on Zoom?
Nothing?
Nothing, Austin?
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen, and we will go on.
Yeah, I'm gonna I'm gonna talk a little bit, Chair, about the bike policy.
Oh, yes, yes, sorry about
Yeah,
that.
no problem, no problem. And Gene, I apologize. I wasn't at your visit to Siemens 2.5 years ago. I just know I was here at Township 9, and all of the members that were there were really ecstatic about the change that had made with the buttons on the doors. So I don't know what they looked like previous to a few weeks ago. I just thought people were happy about the location. So I didn't know about the light, so I apologize. So I'm gonna do a little PowerPoint. I'm gonna go through it quick. My superintendent from Light Rail, Chris Hicks, presented this at the ANI. I fine-tuned it a little bit. First page is contents. It says bikes allowed, 1, 2 bikes lockers. Third section is boarding. Fourth section is bike area. 5 strollers and utility carts. Section 1 is bikes allowed. Go to that, Austin. Next slide. So what this says is I'm going to read the policy and then read what we're doing with the S700 cars versus the legacy fleet. The legacy fleet, which is the high floor LRVs, the CAF and older Siemens, 4 bicycles are allowed and on board each light rail vehicle, 2 in the front and 2 in the rear during all hours of operation. On the last train of the route each day, there is no limit on the number of bicycles allowed. Note that passengers have priority over bicycles, and SACRT reserves the right to ask bicyclists to exit if the bus or train becomes full. S700s will be no different with that policy. Next slide. We can always bypass that. I guess that was just there to make it look pretty. And what we're bypassing is the page that says section 2, section 1. There's nothing written on it but that. So section 2, which is bikes allowed, bike lockers. Weatherproof bike lockers are located at 20 light rail stations. That's throughout the system. We have on the website where those stations are and how to access leasing, renting those by the day. I think there's a few. Most of them are by the month or the year. S700 has no impact on that. Next slide. Boarding. So the legacy fleet, we enter through the rear or the front doors after all other passengers have entered or exited the light rail car. However, in the first light rail car, board only through the rear. No bikes are permitted at the front of the car where the E&H area is because of the ramp. This space is reserved for persons with disability. S700 cars, there's no mini high, so you can board all, throughout the whole car. It says for all light rail vehicles, enter through the rear or front doors after all other passengers have entered or exited the light rail car. Doors will be identified with bicycle decals. So what we'd like to do is put decals on the doors where we want bicyclists to enter. And I'll talk about where they store in the next slide. Next slide. So right now we have place your bicycle in the rear or front of the car next to the flip-up seats, or place your bike in the rack next to the flip-up seats. The CAF light rail vehicles are equipped with 4 bike racks, which is true. There's 2 on each end of the car. With the new S700 LRVs, we're asking that you place your bicycle in the lower level of the rear or front of the vehicle. And when I say lower level, we know as you approach the seating area toward the operating cab, it's higher. It's a raised seating platform. So we're not going to allow bicyclists. There's really no room, but we're not going to allow bicyclists on that higher level. So there's going to be your bicycle will be placed where there's decals that identify that placement. And where we want that is there's some seat backing. I guess when you enter the high level, there's handles right when you enter through the door. As you're looking at the cab, there's some silver backing, some chrome backing to the seats. That's where we'd like to have the bicyclists stand. We feel that that's the most convenient way to accommodate them, but they're out of the way. They will be required to stand with their bicycle the entire trip. Next slide. and strollers and utility carts. So right now there's no riding with a stroller or utility cart unless folded prior to boarding and stowed during transit. So it does not block aisles or reserved areas. We know that's not always true. The S700 cars are going to be no different. You still have to fold your stroller, your utility cart. We need to do a better job monitoring and enforcing that policy. I come from police services before I came to light rail, and there are tools for the transit ambassadors and the RT police units and supervisors to use to enforce that. We just need to do a better job to make sure people's strollers and utility carts are folded when it's applicable to the situation. Next slide is questions and answers. I know we had a question about an e-bike bringing onto the new cars. We have no problem with the e-bike coming on the S700 car. The problem before was the gentleman mentioned the ramp, and you couldn't bring a bicycle on the mini high for the legacy fleet. The platform to the floor bottom of the S700 cars is about 2 inches, maybe 3. I forget, we measured it. Yeah, it's about 2. You could easily, and we had some bicycle advocates at Township 9, and they had an e-bike. The gentleman had an e-bike. The other one had a folding bike. We even brought just a regular ordinary bike from our shop, and all of the bicycles were able to just be lifted onto the train because it's a 2-inch gap. Could you use the ramp from the S700 to board your e-bike if it was too heavy? You could. We don't recommend it because it's not what it's for. It's an easy lift just to put your bicycle onto the S700, and we welcome that. That's the big change from the legacy fleet to what we have now, is we're going to welcome those e-bikes on the train as long as they can stay out of the way and not interfere with the rest of our riders. Yes, and so I'm done. If there's any other questions.
Gene, go ahead.
Vince, I need some help in picturing this. So there's 4 doors on the side, and the doors that the bicyclists and the bikes and e-scooters would have to go through is those that have no ramps, the front and back. And I'll refer them. I see left to right, A, B, C, D, and a B and C being with the ramps. So A and D would be the ones that you would enter. You go up the slope surface. I'm trying to figure out where the bicyclist is going to stand with their bicycle. There is a little area like on A between it and where there's a barrier where there's the seat forward, the seat facing inward. No, that's the higher area there. There's like a little space. And I think one of the transit districts, one of you showed pictures that they had it standing in an end and having the bicycle there. And I don't think that's where you're doing. I'm trying to understand between A and B, there's inward facing seat, but there's equipment in those seats are fixed, do not lift up.
Correct.
And then between A, B, and C, those inward facing seats lift up, and that's where there's a priority seating. But so I can't picture if I'm a bicyclist and I bring my bicycle up the ramp in the interior of A, my only option is to make a right turn on the aisle. Where do I go from there? I don't understand.
Okay, so there's enough room, and we tested this out at Township 9. So if you board that A door immediately to your left, before you go to the high floor area, there's space. You can put a bicycle on each side of the opening.
There's enough space?
There is enough space.
Horizontal?
Horizontal.
And will it be parallel to the ramp, or will it be perpendicular to the ramp, the direction that?
It'll be parallel. So it will.
Okay.
Yeah, it works. It might sound weird, but it works.
Okay.
And naturally, when our stations, you board and exit on different sides of the train. So naturally, there might be some dancing to allow somebody to get by because the bike is could be hanging a little bit more toward the door. So they just might have to move over like 6 inches or so just to be clear. But it's totally doable. We tested all kinds of different scenarios. It worked even when, although we know, because there's not going to be somebody on every train at every time, at every hour of the day, that when there's somebody that's not needing the senior area, those fold up seats, there might be a bicyclist there. The rule is if somebody needs those seats, you move. So
Right.
It sounds crazy, Gene, but it works.
Okay. Now, did you, last one, just out of curiosity, have you tried the train car in one being tested, actually in movement with somebody standing with the bicycle there and see how well that there with no bar or anything, how well they handle it?
No, but we will.
I think you should.
I think that's a good suggestion.
Because I think San Diego still has the bar unless they've removed
and we
recently.
still have the bar too.
Okay.
We still have the bar too.
Okay.
That's still being talked about, but we can't have passengers on board when the train is in motion that are public, but we definitely have our own bikes that are at Metro Yard, and we could put a bike or two on there and see. That's a good suggestion. I like that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other MAC members?
None. Austin, anyone on Zoom?
Okay, public comment.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Vincent, for your presentation. I entirely agree these low-floor vehicles will be more than sufficient to allow bicyclists to enter and exit. My question and my request from the committee was to consider recommending allowing people to use the mobility or accessibility ramp on high floor vehicles, because it will be years and years till the entire fleet is transitioned over. Lord knows it can't come fast enough. But many e-bikes are nearly 100 pounds. My parents are in their 70s, and they can't lift something like that shoulder height to climb up these stairs and access these high floor vehicles. And I don't understand why people can't utilize these accessibility ramps to get a heavy bicycle onto the vehicles, subject to, just like you said before, if somebody who actually has a mobility device like a wheelchair or something else to make space available for them. I would really love it if people could consider this, specifically because there are many, many people who are mobility diminished without needing something like a wheelchair, but could utilize excess, or they could get more transit by being able to utilize a bicycle with an e-bike component, because it broadens out our accessible or addressable market of what is a fairly limited light rail system. And I think we're really missing out a huge amount of potential riders by denying them the ability to utilize this vehicle in conjunction with our light rail vehicles. And I would love for somebody to speak on why we can't utilize these ramps for high floor vehicles. Thank you.
Is this Stephen that spoke? Hi, this is Priscilla Vargas. So I was just going to acknowledge your comment, and it isn't our current policy, but we'll consider. The only reason why we can consider is that there'll be more opportunity for people in mobility devices to utilize the low floor, and that's what we need to really take into consideration there. We're very limited currently with the folks that want to board using the mini high ramp with the current configuration, but as low floor becomes available down the road, which is around the corner, we'll take that in consideration. We'll do some discussions on that question. Thank you.
Okay, any other public comment?
Gene has his hand up again, it looks like.
Gene?
I was wondering, as Priscilla said, there'd be more and more light rail vehicles out there, and there'd be opportunities. Do you have a soft opening date that you'll actually have the low floor light rail vehicles operating for the public? Do you have any soft date yet?
I don't have a soft date, Carmen, do? So it's still summer. We don't have an actual date, but summer.
And we're still on target for all the construction for the low floor platforms at the end of June?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, not hearing any. Thank you both.
Thank you.
And we go on to Jamie, who's coming to be a frequent flyer before this particular group. Oh, we did?
Jamie just went out. Jean,
Well, we can substitute Jean and
Yeah,
hopefully
let's do
grab Jamie back.
Okay.
So because our final item under old business, and actually our final item, is an A&I committee update from Jean. I know we've been covering some of the issues that you've had, but I'm sure you have other things to mention.
Well, like you're absolutely right, Jeff. Many things were brought up and during this meeting. One of the things that was discussed was the door indicators that do currently exist along the gold, blue, and green lines for places where the public can stand. And when the high floor vehicles come up, then you can, especially if you're a totally blind person, particularly, you can then, knowing if you find that spot and you're not wanting to go up the mini high platform, you have these door indicators behind the detectable warnings on the platform, the existing platform. You walk forward and then you push the buttons to open the door, and then you have to climb the steps to get into the vehicle. What was being proposed, and we support it, is along on the platforms, the new platforms, to have one door indicator there, removing all the existing ones along the platform, and that there was a discussion as to where this door indicator should be lined up with which door on the low floor vehicles. The recommendation came out, depending on the geometry of the station, was that I was just using the alphabet a few minutes ago for doors on the side of the vehicle, so I'll still use the alphabet. That the door indicator would be placed either at door B or C, so that you'd have, if you had a need to use the ramp, your ambulatory, that you could go in there. That was the proposed there. Coinciding with that was that at the gold line, which will be exclusively low floor vehicles, everyone will hear the audible announcement telling you that you need to move to the low floor platform and not to use the mini high platforms. And there will be the signage there, and that we were told about, and again, heard a little more in depth today. If you're on the blue line, which will not be exclusively low floor, it'll be either low floor or the high floor vehicles, you'll get an announcement to tell you that you either go to the mini high platform as the train is approaching, or the low floor, depending on the type of train. So that's what was as of April 12th. Things may have changed since then. We talked about the campaign to educate the public, and we've talked about that, so I won't get into that since there's been progress on that. And I guess the last item that we had at least a preliminary discussion about track crossing safety. at the locations that streets and public sidewalks cross the tracks that are used by RT light rail vehicles. And we then instill knowledge that the responsibility for access at these locations falls within the area of government that is jurisdiction. So if it's in a city, then the city is responsible for putting the detectable warnings that you're supposed to find on the sidewalk, that you're to encounter those before you get to the crossing arm, later to be followed by the tracks. What's been found, and this is true for the county, in the unincorporated area, you're supposed to have the detectable warnings, and that's been a requirement since 1990. About the same time, light rail had just finished and was operating its first 18 miles of track. But we're finding in different places that this has not been done in most crossings. We had complaints about S and 19th Street intersection, which is within the city of Sacramento. There's no detectable warnings. There's nothing to indicate to you that you're at going to be crossing an exclusive track rail corridor. And if you turn away from the 19th Street, I believe it is, and make a left or right turn, or depending on what side of the tracks you are, you're going to find that that corner abruptly ends, and then there's a drop down to gravel and weeds that has no barricades to stop somebody from going through. And this is, again, things the city should be doing. Our concern is to see, one, how there can be more interaction with RT and its partners at these track crossings to see these accessibility features are being put in as required, and the new public right-of-way guidelines does not mandate that you have to, but it does indicate that that there should be pedestrian crossing gates, which are, my understanding, are swinging gates that actually are open when there's no train traffic, but when the train is coming through and the crossing arm comes down to stop automobile traffic, that these gates close so to prevent a pedestrian from going further. And these are supposed to be between the detectable warning and the track, and their specifications for how far they're supposed to be from the first rail. Those are things that we want to see, that what's in those guidelines and what eventually the U.S. Department of Transportation is going to be issuing for public review, and eventually will come up with final regulations, hopefully within the next 2 years or so, that this will be looked at in more specificity. And that's something that RT was going to look into, and maybe for future A&I meetings to find out more how we can ensure that the city or county are putting in these accessibility features. Again, 19th and S Street is very dangerous for all different kinds of disabilities. So I think that's my report, Jeff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there staff comments on either of the topics that you brought up? Okay, Are there any MAC member comments on what Jean has mentioned? All right, Helen, go ahead.
Jean, there is a person that is in charge of accessibility for sidewalks. And I don't have his name. Priscilla, did you?
You're talking about Philip?
Yeah, Philip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he did.
You can call him directly and give him the specifications for the gates and for the detectable tiles and where you think they should be placed. I'm pretty sure he would be very responsive.
Helen, I've been very careful not to do that, serving on the MAC, and not to be able to make direct contact with city officials and going through the chains of channels within RT. So I've been moving. I have been following, not taking the lead. Thank you for the suggestion, but I think, if Priscilla and Michael feel that as the chair of the A&I committee, that I should reach out to Philip, if they think that, I will do that, but I'm not going to, I, with all due respect, won't follow without and Carmen's approval either on that.
Okay, thank you, Jean. So that's something that you can probably discuss outside the purview of this meeting, I think. And so any other MAC member comments? Any public comment on the topics Jean has raised? Okay, then we will go back to, thank you very much, Jean and Helen. We'll go back to Jamie if she's back.
I am
All
back.
right, welcome.
Is this on? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
A little closer. Okay.
Good.
All right, great. Thank you. I'm really excited to talk about the Mystery Writer program. I hope some of you are too. SAC-RT has contracted with a company, and the company is named A Customer's Point of View. And they provide mystery writers throughout all of our transportation modes. The purpose of this program is to have an unknown subject write our system and provide a comprehensive assessment of the quality of service that we provide to our writers. We've got some feedback already from the contractor, and this is what they said. SAC-RT just started with us. They are doing extremely well compared to industry peers. And that really made me excited. I worked really hard on this along with Lisa, as well as our operations team, and we're just absolutely pleased so far. And I think it's just going to get better. You may ask, what do the mystery writer, what do they do? So the mystery writer will take a trip on bus, light rail, SAC-RT Go, U-Serve. They'll have a trip planned, and while on the trip, they'll take photos, and they're also completing a scorecard. So they have this scorecard, and once they're done completing it, they send the pictures along with their experience and some notes, and that's digitally shared with SAC-RT. To date, we have 51 mystery rides, and this is so far. We've been doing this for a few months now, and our overall score, 96.5, and that's out of 100. I mean, you can't really ask for anything better, but that's exactly what we're doing. We're asking for better. We want to do well. And with that being said, although we're doing well, there's always room for improvement. We're putting together a corrective action plan to address any identified issues. And while the mystery writer started, and there's multiple writers, so when I say mystery writer, there are multiple, it's not just one person. Well, they just started with bus and light rail service. We have just recently moved them into the SAC-RT Go and U-Serve that started in May, and we're excited to see those results. And I'd be happy to come back and share some stats with you. And I have just one slide, and I can give you just a brief idea of what it is. It doesn't have doesn't have much as far as our specific evaluations, but it gives you an idea of what the scorecard looks like. So it's broken down in small windows and it's got some scores on it, but again, they're just general scores, but it gives you an idea of what the scorecard looks like. So kind of like a report card, if you will. So if I think we were all in school, remember the report cards or an evaluation maybe that you received from your employer. So that's what it looks like with a lot of bright colors. So that's what we're looking at here, but it's not a specific one. It gives some graphs. So I'm open for questions. Jean, I see your hand.
Yeah,
up.
can you mention the categories?
I can. I can't quite see that, and I didn't bring a copy in front of me. Yeah, I can get, well, I can get a little closer. Here, I can walk close and I can.
Thank you.
All right, so, yeah. All right, we do have, let's see. Vehicle condition, ADA compliance, driver safety, fare collection. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. That gives you an idea. We'll do a fresh copy for everyone this next visit, so you can actually go down line by line. But those are really the top things that we're looking for. And again, it's light rail, bus, user, Sacramento, and we're evaluating overall the same parts, but there may be some specific with respect to USERV and Sacramento as well,
Sure.
right? Any of those ADA categories that we're looking for.
Okay, Jean, you're
Yeah, the user, in Sacramento, I am really thrilled to hear that you've expanded this mystery writer program to include those two modes of transportation. The categories, I don't know how specific you really get into the categories, but I would really like to see them come up with something, a category of how well the drivers, how well do they do in actually finding their destinations using the company's GPS. There are areas in Sacramento that the users' GPS is flawed. And I firsthand experience 700 H Street, Sacramento County Administration Building. There are drivers that follow it and they end up somewhere, anywhere from I to L Street.
Okay.
And I went through it, and I'm not going to go, I went through a 2-hour interaction with a driver to get him to 700 H Street on a rainy night with the help of Sac County sheriff that was there, having to help me for 40 minutes trying to convince them. And he stayed professional, but he was starting to lose his patience.
Oh, no.
So the thing is, it's that. And then the thing is, it would be great to see the attitude of the driver I had, which I complained and put this in writing, was he put all the blame that I was in the wrong place and that it made him late. Now, the thing is, that would be, oh, I'm sorry, see if there's any method of finding out how well drivers have in getting to their locations. And if you're riding with it, where you realize their loss and that whether they listen to you and when you can direct them to it. So I don't know how you can deal with that, but I'd like to see something done there because that is a chronic problem. The drivers tell me they have repeatedly complained to user about it. And I'm finished, Jeff.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just that they've complained about it. It's out of control, but we still need, so that it's sure that you get to where you're going.
Right.
And being picked up and you're not stranded. That's
Yes,
all.
thanks for sharing.
That's the
Sorry.
point.
Yeah, I'm sorry
all
that you
this.
experienced that. That definitely
Yeah.
doesn't sound like that's a typical trip. And I
And
should
actually,
note
it
that.
is sort of typical.
It is? Okay,
Yeah,
well, I
and
noted
In
that.
fact, what I was going to say is we've had this issue presented at various meetings of both the MAC and the TC&P. So I would totally concur with Jean that if we can build that into the or do something has to be done to gain data on this. And, so, and the mystery rider program would be one way to do that. So I would concur.
Yeah, I
with
think
you.
it'll be a really good way of doing.
Yeah, it absolutely will. And there's several questions specifically to on driver performance. There are questions, how did you book the ride? Was it, through what address did you provide? Were you brought to that address? How long did it take you? Was there anything to note? If this was an experience that a mystery rider had, they would definitely share those notes. And one thing to point out too, if there's a particular score that is not met, we immediately get that. They're very fast with the evaluations, but they do spend the right amount of time making sure that they evaluate it, that everything is right from their experience, and we would be notified right away. There's a small group of folks, Richard, who's not here today, that I see, he would be immediately notified, as well as Carmen, if something like that happened. But I will make note, I have made notes with respect to that particular address, and I will have that as a takeaway.
And there's some other locations I just don't recall, but that's the one I know for firsthand.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's this location that happens, by the way. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
That's, I forgot all about mine too.
Many times.
Yeah.
And I've got, looks like Kathy might have something to add here.
Yes, we're working very closely. Richard, myself, and Sean are working very closely with UServe in regards to this issue. And what it is they're using different GPSs compared to what our drivers are using. So it's a matter of getting them onto the same GPS app.
Right.
Thank you.
We've definitely had some conversations, and while it sounds like there's a few that are still slipping through, we are actively working on it. I do have some areas that I wanted, since I was able to see it online. Unfortunately, I didn't bring my copy with me. I apologize. But some of the areas that we are closely monitoring, and I'll give you one specific for SAC-RT Go. We evaluate the call to SAC-RT Go reservations, the ride information, on-time performance, vehicle condition, driver conduct, driver safety, fare collection, ADA compliance, and then general comments. Now, under each one of those sections, there are particular questions. I don't have time to go through each one. However, I will give you some quick examples. Did the driver ask for your name? Did they greet you? Did they ensure your seatbelt was secured? Driver safety, did they drive safe? Did they use both hands? Did they refrain from using a cell phone? Fare collection, which type of media was used? Did the driver collect your fare? Moving down to ADA compliance, did the driver provide door-to-door service? We also have some questions with respect to the UServe vehicles, whether or not they indicate that they're UServe. And so again, it's pretty good list underneath. Yes, Jean?
I'm sorry. Two other things that you need to have is their attitude towards service animal handlers and their service animals, acceptance of them being here, and if there's any problems that have been that picked up with the mystery rider thing, and communications. Many of the drivers use their English is not their first language, and their English is sometimes not that fluent. They're respectful and want to help and so forth, but they get some of the confusion they have sometimes with the GPS is the language barrier. But communicating with the passengers and conveying things where needing some help and explaining things. So that would be something. How effective are they in communicating with the passengers?
Right. Good. Well, good news. I'm
yeah.
glad you brought both of those up. Good news. Under driver conduct, we have several questions that I think will really point out if we had a situation like you described. So there's several questions. It's not just one, like, was the driver nice? Right. We want to know more than that. Were they responsive? How did they communicate with you? Along with all the other things they were supposed to do. Very similar to service animal. We spent a lot of time on this. I know this was an area that Priscilla and Carmen, Kathy alike, we wanted to make sure that we captured and went beyond, did you travel with a service animal, right? So there are some additional questions, and it allows for, and we want those comments back from the mystery writer. Did they properly accommodate the service animal? Because we've heard that there have been a few incidents where someone felt like, hey, they canceled my trip because they saw a service animal. That's not okay with us. It's not
Mhm.
acceptable to us. And so we felt like the questions that we have here for the mystery writer will identify if that takes place, and that will be addressed immediately. That type of behavior or action from a user driver, it won't be tolerated. They won't be driving for user anymore. And I'm speaking on Richard's area, but I know that we work closely enough to rest assured that won't be the case.
Thank you.
Great
Okay,
questions.
Charlie
Thank
has
you.
been waiting a long time here. so-
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Let's see, on the subject of not getting to where you were traveling, I've also had trouble getting to 700 8th Street, and that was with SAC-RT Go. So anyway, and my question, and you might have said this and I missed it, are you also having mystery writer for the Smart Ride?
Have we started with Smart Ride? I'm double checking. It'll be the next one. Yeah, it will be the next. It's coming. It's
Okay.
on its way. Not yet.
Right. And one additional comment, the other day I made a reservation to go to an elementary school in Midtown, actually East Sac. And I gave the address of the school, which I got from his website. And the reservationist says, well, that's not an address. And it did not pop up on his computer. And so he got on and looked up the website of this place too. And son of a gun, that was the correct address and all of that. And so he took the time to put it into the system. And so I really appreciated that help and insight.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
good. That worked
Oh,
out
that's
very
great,
nicely.
great. Good. I think, yeah, I think,
Yeah.
I see Kathy's, she's perking up. So yes, no, great. Thank you for sharing that. And that's exactly what we expect our staff to do as well. We do want to know exactly where you're going, so we get you to the right place. We may ask them follow-up questions and do a little research on our end and just confirm that's where you want to go. So thanks for sharing that.
Other MAC member questions? Anyone on Zoom, MAC members? Okay, public comment.
We're going to get you.
I just got a question about so the mystery writers, is there details of the demographic data, like the people that did that, and were there representation from people with mobility or visual impairments?
That's a great question. We have very limited information, right? Because we do want to keep it a mystery writer. But I can say that we have made that suggestion, and we are working with the agency to provide that again. I can't give too much information, but it is something that we've touched on and we plan to be able to do as a phased rollout. Yes. Yeah, great question. Thank you for asking.
Okay, any other public comment, questions or comments? Anything on Zoom, Austin? Okay.
Great.
Thank you, Jamie.
Great. Thank you so much. And I'll see you soon.
Hi.
I'm
Okay,
pretty
we're
excited
on to-
about that program, I'll just have to say.
Yeah. We are on to new business, of which there is none this time. Don't expect there to be no new business next time. No, I'm sure we'll have some. Announcements and requests for items for future agendas. Do we have any of those from MAC members?
Me?
Okay, Helen?
Helen?
Yes, I was at the board meeting on Monday and they had an employees, I think it was an employees survey.
Satisfaction survey.
Satisfaction survey. And I only saw light rail and bus. And I was wondering if the RTGO part of RT was included in that satisfaction survey. Because from my experience, I feel that a lot of the drivers have some issues that may have not been addressed.
Carmen, can you respond to that?
Thank you.
I can. The survey was open to all SAC-RT employees, 100%, including SAC-RT Go. And we're happy to also come to the MAC and present the same presentation if
Yeah.
you would like.
Great. We may want to put that on next time's agenda. So Helen, that's good. Thank you for that. Any other announcements or requests? Jean
Well,
and Charles?
it's a piggyback on Helen question. And I think really, especially would be really interested about the SAC-RT Go drivers satisfaction. And I know the first, it will, when I say this, it will say, well, they're not our employees, user, but I think that's something that should be developed. Satisfaction report with both companies on those drivers. Their attitudes and how they're feeling. There's many of them that are very frustrated and have no recourse of how to provide input. They try to user, and that I believe somewhat starts affecting their attitude as drivers and what they're doing. And I think there's a turnover. Longtime drivers stay there maybe a year or so, user, and are leaving because they would like to stay, but they're so frustrated dealing with it and they have no way to report it. And I think finding out with these drivers, because then it could help both companies to retain the maximum number of drivers you need and have some on-call drivers. So I think, Carmen, let's really start working, and Richard, to work with user, jointly you both coming up with a satisfaction report on those drivers specifically.
Carmen, do you want to?
I was going to respond, but go ahead, Carmen, if you want.
Oh, go ahead. Whichever.
One of the things that I want to stress is that, and I'm involved with these meetings. We were meeting very frequently. Now we're meeting every other week with USERV. And when we get feedback like what you just shared, Jean, that is something that goes at the top of the agenda. And we meet with the USERV staff to express, if there are those kinds of concerns that are coming through with our riders on Go and USERV, that is something that they need to be well aware of. I think that's the first way that we should actually have that kind of communication. Again, they are not our employees, they are USERV employees. So, but we have a really good communication link with USERV. So anything that we share is well received, and they definitely follow up, and we don't not revisit those items. So that'll be our first step. I'm speaking for Richard as the director, but Kathy is here as well. And I think that we definitely would want to share that information that you're telling us. I don't hear that so much. So that is something somewhat new to me. And I appreciate you putting that out there.
I know this is
I think we
this is
should,
not-
we can't act on it today.
No,
obviously,
and I-
but we should, my point is, we should agendize this, because I think that the point that you have raised and that others have raised and that we all know to be true is one we need to put on the agenda and talk about this further, because I think it's very important that something happen. Jean, the last comment before, because we can't act on it.
Oh, no, I understand we can't act on it. I just wanted that to be looked at satisfaction, because, I think each of us riders, after a while, ride with some of the same drivers, and they start feeling a little more comfortable. And And I guess the answer would be, well, it's inappropriate for them to share their frustration with the passengers, but some of them, it reaches the point that it's just, you happen to be a passenger after they've had a dealing with the people there that they find indifferent, and they need to talk to somebody, and it just leaks out, and they try to hold back. And culturally, many of them, you can tell this is something that goes against their culture to do this, but they're doing it. And sometimes I've had them say, thank you for listening.
Yeah. So that's
That's it.
2 items that we have, I think, that we need to bring up in the executive committee for putting on future agendas and hopefully near future agendas. Okay, Charles.
Actually, it wasn't me. Helen has a comment.
Helen, you have another one?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was wondering if they could cross-train drivers so that if
Okay.
a big bus driver wanted to work for RTGO on his day off, if they could do that, or if they needed more drivers for RTGO or Smart Ride, those drivers might be available to transfer over to RTGO or Smart Ride or Big Bus, because we're having issues with people cancellation rides for the big bus is becoming a very big problem. I mean, there are days when we have 89 rides that have been canceled throughout the system. I think if they cross-train drivers, then they have the option to work on a different vehicle on their days off, or if they get off work and they can go on to another route or something like that, that might be helpful.
Okay, we can raise that. Or Carmen, you want to make a comment?
Sure, I can respond to that. We currently have a memo of understanding, an MOU with ATU, and we're able to do that now. We are cross-trained from our main contract, which is, quote, our big bus operators, and they have the ability to sign up for extra work to work in Sacramento. It's a temporary agreement, and we have renewed it once prior.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And it may be
Great.
something we want to hear more about on some agendas. So
Yeah.
thank you, Helen, for raising that, and thank you, Carmen. All right, anyone else, MAC members with announcements or requests?
I have an announcement.
Okay.
This is German with Agency on Aging Area 4. So we're currently partnering with Civic Thread and Resources for Independent Living on a pop-up event to assess accessibility on walking, biking, scootering, wheelchair, etc. And on that regard, Civic Thread just sent me an email, and I just wanted to share it with you on a different topic. Civic Thread and the County of Sacramento Department of Transportation are working together to assess the accessibility of Watt Avenue and make it safer and more accessible for all of us. They're applying for funding for Caltrans Active Transportation Program, aiming to improve the sidewalk and bike lane access along Watt Avenue from Peacekeeper Way to Roseville Road. This would mean better connection and safer journeys for everyone. In order to go after funding to help improve Watt Avenue, they're asking for our input, and they have a survey available in English, Farsi, and Russian. So I will share that information, and they extended that survey until the end of this week, but I just got this email, so I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention.
Okay, thank you. Any other MAC members with announcements? Okay, so any members of the public with some announcements? This is our last item of business before we adjourn. Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you, everyone, for a very good and interesting meeting.
Thank you.